Hey, peace, everyone, and welcome to Divine Intervention Show, Season 2, Episode 1. With that being said, I am your host, Coach Empress, Nicole, of RenaNicole.com, Divine Intervention Show and Podcast, Ethereal Wellness, and Sankofa's Naturals. Now, don't forget to head to my website, RenaNicole.com, to check out my new EP, which is streaming my new single Ghosted on every media outlet. And also download, share, like, subscribe to my podcast, which is available on every streaming network. Now, the topic of this podcast is human interaction as regulation and dysregulation. So, we're going to take a moment to sit and recalibrate before we begin this beautiful, beautiful podcast. I just want to say I'm super excited to be here. It's been such a long time since 2022. So I'm happy to be back at it and to share with you guys. All right, let's get into this topic. You already know how I like to do. Excuse me. Now, every human interaction performs one of two functions at the level of the nervous system. It either regulates or dysregulates. Before meaning is assigned, before intention is interpreted, before language is processed, the human nervous system answers a single question in the presence of another human. Am I safe here? This assessment alone is automatic, unconscious, and continuous. It is shaped by tone, pacing facial expressions, predictability, proximity, congruence, power dynamics, and historical memory. Us humans don't relate first through ideas or values. We relate through neuroception. This is the body's preconscious threat and safety detection system. Period. Okay? This is why two people can hear the same words and have entirely different reactions. The world is not the primary data. The nervous system, state of the speaker, and the listener is. Okay? So, the way that our nervous system sits and how it's able to relax and receive and regulate itself, that right there is our primary data center, in case you don't understand what I'm saying. Because when human interaction is regulating, It expands capacity. It increases tolerance, and it restores coherence. When it is dysregulating, it narrows perception, increases defensiveness, and depletes relational resources. Now, over time, repeated dysregulation transforms even well intentioned relationships into a place where it can feel like a threat. Okay? So, the more that someone feels unsafe around you, or the more you feel unsafe around someone else, the more you start to consider them a threat. Now, this principle applies to universally, like it applies to everything. Strangers, co-workers, friends, families, the communities that you serve or not, institutions, and also online spaces. The nervous system does not differ based on roles, okay? It replies, it responds to stimulus. And it doesn't matter where you are. It's our protection center, it's our data center. And it's like a computer. It wouldn't know anything unless you put it into it. So whatever you put into your nervous system, it learns, it adapts, it evolves. Okay? And we must remember that. When it comes to co-regulation and co-dysregulation in the body, psychologically speaking, humans are social mammals designed for co-regulation, meaning that our nervous system stabilize through safe connections with other regulated nervous systems. Eye contact, vocal porosity, rhythmic pacing, okay, and predictable interactions all signal safety and help return the body to baseline after stress. However, when two dysregulated nervous systems interact, co-regulation is going to occur because instead of calming each other, the interaction amplifies a threat response. Okay? So this is not because either person is malicious or immature. It can be because the nervous systems involved, you know, insufficient regulation to buffer the exchange. Now, content does not regulate. Facts, explanations, logic, and even empathy statements do not calm a nervous system that perceives a threat. Regulation happens through felt safety cues. And this is why people can say, I understand, or I didn't mean it like that, and still escalate conflict. The nervous system does not respond to intention. Again, our nervous systems does not respond to intention. Our nervous system responds to sensation. So say for instance, if you've done something to someone and you don't see it that big of a deal, and you are trying to reason with them, their nervous system may perceive a threat, even if they feel like they walked away from a situation or they moved past it, because you opened up a wound that you probably didn't even know existed. Perhaps in this scenario, they perceive you as a threat now. So no matter what you say or do, they are on the defense. They are in a mode where they're waiting for something to happen, or they feel like you put them in a spot where they know the outcome. Okay? Another critical psychological insight for this is that humans often mistake familiar dysregulation for connection. You know, raised voices, urgency, emotional intensity, and constant engagement can feel like closeness to a nervous system accustomed to chaos. Now, conversely, calm, consistency, and spaciousness can feel boring, cold, or unsafe to a dysregulated system. This leads people to repeatedly choose relationships and environments that destabilize them while rejecting those that will regulate them. So, if you feel like you're always a person who brings you peace, or if you feel like someone who always was just peaceful, oh, they boring, they corny, I don't want to deal with them. They're not my type. I just couldn't get into it. It's like they had everything I wanted except for their personality was boring. They didn't give me a little razzle dazzle, a little sizzle dizzle, right? Um, this may be because you're used to dysregulation. Um, this is something I had to encounter with myself and realize that me being at peace was accepting a peaceful person, accepting a person who doesn't come with the drama, who doesn't come with the chaos, and accepting what safety really felt like. And it was very challenging for me because I was used to chaos. I was used to my nervous system being dysregulated. I wasn't used to peace and safety. So when I started to receive peace and safety, I perceived it as boring, as not colorful, as something I couldn't get into until I had to learn through my own spiritual evolution and evolvement that's still going on that safety indeed is a peaceful thing. Okay? And it does regulate me. One thing chronic to dysregulation shrinks the window of tolerance. Okay? People become more reactive, less flexible, and more prone to misinterpretation. They begin to associate certain humans, groups, or contexts with threats, even if no explicit harm is occurring. This is how relationships decay without obvious conflict. And I'm trying to tell you, it's because they have their own issues they're working on. And they're so used to, like, the abandonment wound. They're so used to being abandoned, not being nurtured, not being held accountable, not being talked to in a direct way, that they perceive directness as passive aggressiveness, because there's no way they can be talking to me like that. It's ego, right? It's ego protecting the broken child. It's ego protecting the abandoned child. It's ego protecting the child who wasn't loved enough, right? So they may perceive your love as a form of a threat that's meant to dysregulate them because they're experiencing things that they're not used to outside of the chaos. And they can't control the feeling that they feel when it comes to you. Okay? Keep that in mind. So, humans don't burn out from connection, they burn out from dysregulation. And the higher I go in my spiritual journey, I realize that I only pull away from relationships when I feel dysregulated, when I don't feel safe. Like, oh, you're not a safe person for me, because if whenever I express myself, you feel like I'm repeating myself and you don't change behavior, yet whenever you express yourself and I take it in and receive it, and I don't listen to respond, and I don't listen to feel offended or attacked, I take it as something that I can grow from so I can love or I can pour into you better. If that's not reciprocated after a while, to me, it becomes draining. Then it becomes toxic. then it becomes unsafe. Okay? So, because through the spiritual lens, regulation as coherence and dysregulation as fragmentation is something that is really, really big. Okay? Because spiritually, regulation can be understood as coherence of energy. When humans are regulated, their internal systems are aligned, their presence is steadily grounded and responsive rather than reactive. This coherence allows for authentic connection without collapse or overextension. Now, this is where it can get tricky because some people feel like, oh, we should naturally love each other. We should naturally understand each other. Some connections need work because in some areas we can flow so well and freely, but other areas like our emotional core, our heart center, our mind's eye, our third eye can still be like a meeting of the minds where that iron is steady sharpening the iron, but I'd rather take the iron to iron a cloth out and make something look nice and neat and get the wrinkles out instead of just sharpening and sharpening and sharpening. So spirituality is so complex that we we can remember, it's important, imperative to remember that when in a connection, even though connection without collapse is um connection without collapse or overstimulation is ideal. Yet that's not always how it goes. And if you have a connection that doesn't present without collapse or overstimulation all the time, it doesn't mean the connection failed. It means that it's fragmented, right? And there's still work to do because no connection is perfect, but there are things that you can connect to people that make it worthwhile of staying. People are not chessboards. People are not red light, green light, yellow light, go. It's not a game. Even though people like to play games, most people that play games with other people end up losing, or they feel like they won something. And once they get their prize, and then they feel like they're stuck with something they never truly wanted. Because when they had what they desired, they were so dysregulated and wounded that they couldn't see the sun beaming down on them, and it was too powerful for them to take in. Now, dysregulation in spiritual terms, right, is equated to fragmentation. Energy becomes scattered, rushed, or constricted. Again, or constricted. So if you're in a spiritual connection and someone is constricting themselves, not giving time, not giving energy, not holding space, not showing grace for you, not showing empathy for you, not showing up for you, they are dysregulated. This is what we see as fragmentation in relationships. This is someone who's emotionally unavailable. This is someone who may be emotionally manipulative, someone who may be have narcissistic tendencies or mental health issues, or someone who is selfish or living a double or triple life. Okay, so a lot of things can be at place here, so I don't want to just triangulate around and just point out one thing. Okay, so I have to be mindful of that. Now, when fragmentation, excuse me, I had to get a sip of water. When fragmented humans interact, the field between them becomes unstable. Even well-meaning exchanges leave beings feeling drained, unsettled, or confused. And that's one thing that many people will agree with. They say that confusion is the devil's energy. If anyone is giving you the energy of confusion, it's the devil's energy. They don't mean you well. Because how can you connect with someone and say that you love someone and you are giving them confusion, delay, resistance, and you're not reciprocating, you're not vulnerable, You're not willing to let them in. Keep that in mind, okay? Because many similar things can happen, and it feels like a loop, okay? It feels like a loop because these things feel familiar. And never ever deny your own intuition, because many spiritual frameworks misinterpret dysregulation as a moral failure or a lack of enlightenment. Like, oh, this person isn't enlightened because they're not behaving in a certain way. They're not receptive of energy in a certain way. So maybe they're not enlightened. And that as well is not true. Um, welcome. Thank you for coming in. We have to keep these things in mind, that in reality, dysregulation is often a signal of overload, trauma, or unmet biological needs. Spiritual bypassing is going to occur when regulation is replaced with ideology, positivity, or transcendence. You know, using different language instead of being addressed somatically. Spirituality is the least thing that you should box anyone in on. Yet, so many people box people in on their spiritual belief systems. And this is why it's so diverse and so complex, that we all receive the information. Some of us receive downloads spiritually, intuitively, and we're able to see things that others are not. And that's okay, because we all are spiritual beings living a human experience, right? And that means that we're all perfectly flawed to a point, okay? A crucial spiritual truth is that presence regulates more than practice. A human who is grounded and regulated often offers more. They really do. I'm trying to tell you, a human that is grounded and regulated offers more. And it's not to say that people offer less. It is what it is. They offer more healing simply by being, right, than a dysregulated person would. A dysregulated human offering techniques, advice, or insight. This is why people feel more calmer around certain individuals without knowing why, and exhausted around others, even when conversations are quote unquote productive. You know, I'm a person who constantly and consistently says this, that people know spiritual language, yet you can never deny energy. And this is why I'm not this is the reason why I'm not around a lot of people, because I feel drained when I leave their presence. I feel tired. I feel like they suck me dry. And they can speak as much productive language as they want to, but the energy is lying. It doesn't align with the words, you know. And I love to be around other people. When I speak to them, I feel empowered. When I speak to them, I feel encouraged. And I can also offer the same things to them. There is no point in being around anyone where you're constantly giving and giving and giving, and there's no reciprocity coming back. Unless you're a glutton for punishment and failure, then there's no point in allowing yourself to be disrespected and disregarded in that manner. Okay? Spiritually, sustainable humans, they just like the interaction that we have, it requires respect for rhythm, silence, and limits. Constantly talking to someone it can be a beautiful thing. It can be. Constant engagement, though, and constantly talking to someone, constant emotional urgency, like I need you emotionally, and over processing um, can destabilize your energetic field. And this is why I pull back, you know, when I start to feel like I'm coming through with a codependent energy, or that I'm giving off that I need someone to feel whole. And it may feel like that sometimes, like, hey, this is the missing piece of my puzzle. But also, excuse me, on the other hand, we must remind ourselves that the puzzle still needs to be colored, still needs to be watered, still needs to be nurtured, still needs to be shaped. So, in order to connect to something else, you have to be a piece that is worthy and valuable of connection. And that is by doing the inner work. Now, peace is not taught, it is transmitted. Really, it's not taught. Peace can never be taught. No matter what you do, no matter who you serve, peace is not something that we can teach. Now, when it comes to regulation as a non negotiable and biological law, looking at it from an absolutist point of view, the nervous system obeys biological laws regardless of belief, culture, or intention. Regulation is not optional. Dysregulation has consequences, whether acknowledged or not. A nervous system in threat mode reallocates resources away from empathy. Okay? Curiosity and long term thinking towards survival functions. This makes sustained collaborations, intimacy, or learning impossible. No amount of willpower overrides this process. Repeated dysregulating interactions create conditioning. The nervous system learns to anticipate a threat in certain contexts or with certain people. Once this learning occurs, repair becomes exponentially more difficult because the body reacts before the mind can intervene. Hello? This lens strips away blame. If an interaction repeatedly dysregulates, the system will either change structure or disengage. This is not avoidance, it is biological connection. The body will choose survival over relationships every time. I'm trying to tell you, as someone who is dealing with severe the CPTSD daily, I live with this daily. My body will choose survival over connection every day of the week. And I don't say this in a way that I'm bragging or that I'm proud, but something I'm absolutely sure about. If I feel unsafe around you, if you make me feel unsafe, you will not have any contact to me. We will not be connected. We will not interact because my safety is imperative. Now, from a relativist point of view, and how culture confuses the regulations for normality, culturally, many environments normalize chronic dysregulation. They really do. Speed, urgency, competitiveness, emotional exposure without containment, and constant availability are framed as engagement, passion, or productivity. As a result, regulated interaction is often misread as disengagement, lack of care, or emotional distance. People who pace themselves, set limits, or require rest are labeled as avoidant or cold, while dysregulated behavior is excused as authenticity. Now, this one is a little complicated and it's a little complex, not complicated, because some people are avoidant and they will use these excuses like, oh, I need a rest. I need to take a pause from this relationship. I need a me time. But also, on the other hand, being regulated is consistent of quiet, of space, of pulling back energy, of recalibration, of self care, of self love. And it doesn't mean chaos. It doesn't mean overextension. It doesn't mean overused. It doesn't mean overworked and overstimulated. So, this is where connecting to people and respecting boundaries matter. But don't allow anyone to breadcrumb you or try to not prioritize you because of regulation. Because if they want to be involved in your life and they are treating you in a dysregulated manner, but they're claiming they're doing this because they need to be regulated, then somebody's not telling the truth. Or somebody is misinformed or misaligned. And this is why we mean that a lot of spiritual people definitely have this very, very confused, and they twist meanings and they abuse meanings to their own reward. Yet karma comes in and have its day with its own response. That's another conversation for another day. But, culturally, mislabeling creates widespread relational confusion. Okay? Because humans are taught to override bodily signals in favor of social scripts. I'm tired. Oh, just come on out. You know you need to get out. You don't never get out. They come out, they go home and they have a heart attack and they sleep. Or they get injured or something like that. We need to promote protecting self more, okay? Because over time, they lose the ability to distinguish safety from stimulation. Oh, come on, come around us. We love you. Yeah, no, I love you too, but no, because my love requires regulation, not dysregulation. And again, the moment you make someone feel unsafe, it's dysregulation. Never, never, ever, never, ever question your intuition. Your intuition knows when it's not safe. Yet the dysregulated part of you still wants to stay in places that's not safe for you because of the wounds that you have. Okay? Culture often rewards dysregulation and punishes regulation. So for the people that say, you know, this is how it should be and this is how it should go, and when you feed into that, they are with you and they celebrate it. Yet when you stand in your own righteous truth and power, now you're avoidant, cold, and distant. You never loved, you never cared. You're a fake, you're a fraud, you know? Yet when you're overworked, overstimulated, available to everyone, say no to no one, don't have boundaries, you have all the friends, you're authentic. Who would ever question that? Okay? Now, I just want to say thank y'all for coming out. Thank you for supporting. Um, my name is Empress Coach Rena Nicole of renanicole.com. You can find me on Instagram, Divine Empress Nicole Coach, Empress Nicole Medicine Woman. Also, my website, renanicole.com/podcast dash media. Check out my first EP I dropped called Divine Feminine. And the single that I am promoting right now is called Ghosted. With that being said, love, light, prosperity, healing, and regulation. Peace, peace, y'all, and take care.